Hi, welcome to Actualol. These are some of the board games I've been playing lately. In Cupcake Empire, you're trying to run the best Cupcake Empire. You're trying to sell cupcakes, you're trying to improve your production, and it really does feel like something of a business simulation because one of the core things of the game is that you're trying to keep your sales level in line with your production level. So if you're producing too much and you're not selling it, well, that's not good. And if you're got loads of people want to buy it, but you're not producing enough, then that's not good either. And so every round you get income, which is points, equal to which of those tracks you're lowest on. So you're trying to move them up in tandem. The way you do things in the game is with these dice, and these dice are wonderful just to feel. They have this kind of brushed plastic feel to them that almost make them feel and look like candy. And I don't know if you can see, but just the aesthetic of this whole game has these amazing bright colors. It's got these meeples that are colored based on the ingredients that the customers want in their cakes. So it says in the rulebook that the people in this city have been told to wear clothes matching their favorite flavors of cupcakes, and that's what they're doing. And just the board and then the artwork, I absolutely love the box art on this one. It's got these little cupcakes that represent retail outlets and things like that. So it just looks incredible, but it's actually much heavier and more involved than you would imagine from the way it looks and the theme. The way it works, the rules aren't, I wouldn't say that complicated. It's just the depth of decisions and how intense it can feel when you're trying to take your turn. So what happens is that you will just pick a column on your turn to activate, and how well that does depends on the number of dice in it. You have, these dice are kind of like workers, and you have a specialist for each color. So you've got, you bake new bases for your cupcakes. So this is a chocolate base, and this would be this one here. Then very similarly, you can do frosting. So you've got 4 different types of frosting: mint, lemon, strawberry, and chocolate. And if you get really good, you can do mixed frostings, and that will appease 2 different types of customers, because if you've got lemon chocolate frosting, then you can please the lemon people and the chocolate people. Then you've got building a retail outlet that allows you to improve your sales. Then you've got actually serving to customers, so you can't just sell to customers unless you do the green one. And then you've got this final one, does a few different things. It allows you to get new dice in, and it allows you to build a bakery, which basically can produce things and sell things. And then if you roll a 6, you kind of can just put that dice anywhere. So there's just a lot going on in terms of what you can do on your turn, because you also have these improvements which will give you extra actions. So it can sometimes take a while for you to take your action, because you're like, okay, so I'm doing this one. Oh, which one do I pick? And then, oh, I've got an improvement on there, so then I've got to do that. There is a little bit of downtime in the game, I've found, much like you would get with this kind of heavier Euro game. And like I said, it isn't complex in terms of the rules, and I wouldn't even say that the game takes that long. It really sort of ramps up and can finish quite quickly. It's just that feeling of overwhelmingness on your turn that had me feeling it was sort of as heavy as Agricola in terms of that turn complexity. And that's what I was playing with other Eurogamers, and they were feeling the same. So really, that's the reason it isn't the kind of game for me, because I don't want to be lost in my head trying to get to grips with it all. I don't have the brain for that. It isn't something that I find that satisfying. But if you like that kind of thing, I think there's interesting mechanisms here. So once you take an action, you roll those dice, and they're going to then get placed into the columns of the numbers that you rolled. So when it comes to your next turn, you can be thinking, okay, there's always going to be like a place where you've got the most dice, but that's not really what you want to do right now. So are there some tokens you can play, or is there something you can do to maybe shift some dice to a different column because you really want to focus on that? There is a little bit of vying for the customers, because once you serve a customer, they're now in your customer base and nobody else can get there. And there's a bit of control in terms of getting your retail outlets into the right neighborhoods and then being able to serve to those neighborhoods. but I didn't find that I was really worrying too much about what the other players were doing, and it was the same for them. So I did find that there wasn't as much interaction as I would like from a strategy game. It was really just focusing on my own thing. So it definitely feels like a simulation of a Cupcake Empire, and there's a lot to get your teeth stuck into. Isn't my kind of game, but it might be for you, and it's got some incredible production and artwork. That's Cupcake Empire. My favorite things is a party game from Japan that I picked up at Essen, and I'm probably going to frustrate you here because as far as I know, this is not available anywhere, or it's going to be very hard to get hold of. But if you are a publisher that makes party games, you should absolutely try and license this game or publish this game because it needs to have a proper English version. It's a very simple idea where you are listing things in a category of your favorite things. So you will assign a category to the player to your left. So for example, I might say, what are your favorite TV chefs? What are your favorite towns in the UK? What are your favorite flavors of crisp? Pick a category that you think you know about your friend. And that's what I love about this game, is you're playing on your knowledge of your friend. So you will pass your cards to them and they will write on these cards, they're like whiteboard cards, 6 different categories, let's say 6 different types of crisp, and they will secretly assign a number to each of these things. So they will put a crisp on a card and then assign a number. And they've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, where 1 is your favorite crisp ever. 0 is a crisp that you actually don't like, is not your favorite thing. And then 2, 3, 4, 5 are crisps that you like. They don't have to be your second and third and fourth and fifth favorite, but they are ranked in that order. So you like your second most flavor of crisp more than the fifth. And they are then handed back to you in these sleeves so that all you can see is the types of crisp. And you don't know what the numbers are underneath. But you do know your friend and you do know what crisp they like. That's why you pick that category. And now you're playing a simple little card game, almost like a trick-taking game, where you're trying to get points. And so you basically just play a card. Everyone else will play a card in that round. And they're, of course, all playing with, you know, their favorite Steven Spielberg films and your favorite Simpsons characters and your favorite board games and things like that. And so you're also having to look at them and understand, oh, okay, so if, like, I know that Phil really likes Jurassic Park. So if I've seen Jurassic Park come up, then maybe now's a bad time for me to play Thai Sweet Chili Walker's Sensations because that's his favorite crisps, and then I'm gonna get trumped. I'm gonna waste my number 1 card. Of course, you don't know, and so then when you play your cards and then all reveal at the end of that round, and you see who won the round. And there's a cool little twist where basically 1 would beat 2, and 1 would beat all of the other numbers. But if there's a 1 out and there's a 0 out, 0 wins. So if you can see someone's got the 1, or you think that they are playing their best, their favorite card, you can play the 0 to cancel it out and win that trick. And it's also interesting because you do know what one of the set of the cards is because it's your set. It's the set that you wrote down when somebody asked you. So you do have that information. I just love it. I've played a lot of games where you try to understand about your friends and they tend to be really good at creating discussion. And I think that type of genre is great. And I've almost like never found a game that was perfect. There's a lot of games that I like, but this one is the best that I've played in that type of game. I think it's brilliant for creating discussion. You don't even have to play it with your friends. You can play it with people that you don't know very well, but just pick a more generic category. Pick something that you think you would know about them. The other challenge is in when you're writing those cards, try to fox them. Don't go for the most obvious 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, your favorite Chris. Yeah, sure, you go for the favorite one, but then put in some ones that they might not be sure about. Ones you think they don't like, but actually you don't mind. And when you put in that 0, that thing that you don't like, try and make that sound appealing. And then, of course, then they've got less information. You're more likely to win the game. So there is real thought to what you're doing. It is a game as well as like a conversational party exercise thing. It's brilliant. It's definitely one of my favorite party games of the year. I would recommend that everyone play it once. And I'd be amazed if somebody doesn't pick this up. Unfortunately, the one downside to it is that it's fiddly because you're using these card sleeves, and there has to be a much better way that a bigger company could do this with, I don't know, magnetic cards or something, some flip thing, something that just makes it easier to use because it's a bit fiddly. But this version, for some reason, comes with a metal letterbox that is the first player marker. So why not? So yeah, I absolutely love that game. It is brilliant. Tags is a very simple family type party game that I can totally imagine playing at Christmas with family. You're trying to get words or things that are in the right category, and you're racing against the time. You're playing on teams, and so you're trying to get these balls. There's these nice marbles, in fact, and you have this little plastic dog bowl to keep them in when you win them. And the way you're doing that is by saying something that fits the tags that are here. So here you've got villains, things that are soft, at the Olympic Games, trees and shrubs, in a bathroom. And there's loads of different cards in these stacks that you can get through. So those are the categories. And then you've got letters, K, B, M, E. So you're trying to match up these things. So if I had trees and shrubs, I could say birch and I would win this marble. And then I'm going for elm, E, and I'm just trying to get as many marbles as I can in 15 seconds. Then it's the other team, so they're thinking whilst it's my turn. So I like that. There's no real waiting for the other team because you can always be thinking about what you're going to do. Of course, then somebody gets it on their turn and you had one lined up. And also just a couple of little tweaks that make it a bit more than just your average like party game for families from 20 years ago. For example, the marbles are worth different values. So the white is worth 1 point, blues are worth 2, blacks are worth 3. So you really want to focus on the things that are going to get you more points. But that's really interesting because you can waste time trying to think about a marble that you're just never going to get because it's just not coming to you. Or you could just let yourself be a bit more free and easy and achieve something that's actually achievable and pick up a bunch of white marbles because they're able to come into your head, these ideas. The other thing is that the tags, the categories are worth points as well. They all have different star tokens on, so things at the Olympic Games, I guess, is considered a bit harder than things that are soft. So if you're able to win this tag, that's going to be 4 points for your team. The way you win a tag is by taking the last marble from that column. So you can really focus on columns, or when it's the other team's turn, you can see, oh, there's only one marble left on that tag, so let's really try and get that. And you just go back and forth, 15 seconds for each team until all of the marbles are gone, or you maybe just get to a point where nobody can get one for the remaining few anymore. It's by no means a modern classic that revolutionizes party games like some games that I cover, but it's accessible and it's just fun. And there's loads of content in it. There's loads of different types of categories. Like I haven't even gone through all the different types of things. And there's a bunch of different letters. If you want to make it harder, there are cards that specifically ask for letters in certain places of the word, not at the start, I think. And just really tricky letters like X and Z and things like that just make it that little bit harder. And these marbles are nice. I like that it uses its own box. So yeah, I would recommend tags if you're looking for a family game that anyone can get into and you can have a bit of fun with maybe at Christmas, then give this one a try. That's tags. Trollfjord is a game that I was excited about coming out at Essen, and it's a family game with a twist, which is that it has a dexterity element where you get to hit this hammer against this cube tower, and so that cubes come out. Now, I'm usually better at it than this. And so the theme of it is that you're trying to clear out troll caves, And how you do that is by sending your people to the different regions where these caves are. So this is a cave, and you have to start off with the number 1 caves, and the number 2s, then the number 3s. And depending on how many people you have at a location, that's how many times you'll get to hit the tower. What you're trying to do is get enough cubes out to match the points that are available here. So this is 14 points. So I would get to hit the tower 5 times. All the cubes go back in. So I go 1. Why is it not like? So I'd hit the tower 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then have I got out 14 cubes? I don't think I have. Maybe I have. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh yeah, I have. But what you've got to check for is whether you've gone bust. And you will check every time you hit the tower whether you've got too many cubes out of one color. Your allowance is again determined by the number of people you've got in that region. And so the more people you have, the more hits you get, but also the less likely you are to go bust. So there's some interesting dexterity to hitting the tower. I found that you can definitely get better at it, and that it isn't, you can hit it softly to get 1 or 2 out. So there's a little bit of push your luck in terms of like, oh, I want a couple more cubes because maybe I want to push for this 22 points. I've got the 14, I could bow out now, but actually I want to hang in there and get the 22, but then I hit out too many cubes, I go bust. I really wanted to love this game, and I had fun with it, but I don't think it quite warrants the big box and the dexterity element. I don't think that there's enough added around it to make it an interesting enough game. I think that the hitting the cubes out the tower is fun, but is it fun 5 games into the future still? And getting your workers into place, for example, you can also piggyback off of other people's hitting. So if you get enough workers into the same region that they're about to hit the tower with, you can get involved. And that's, again, there's some really cool ideas in there where if they hit the tower and nothing comes out, they have to give you the hammer, and now you're in charge. And if you go bust, they'll go bust as well, and you'll get first dibs on the points. There's definitely fun stuff going on, but it's almost just too long and not enough of the good stuff, and it just somehow, it doesn't all come together to produce the kind of awesome experience I was hoping for. But of course, this is a bit of a long shot. Like, trying to get some kind of family strategy game that involves a cube tower, I think is a big ask, and I think they've probably come the closest that is maybe even possible with this kind of thing. So I certainly welcome the experiment. I think this is how we innovate in board games. This is how we come up with amazing new games, and I would rather be seeing games like this come out than another worker placement game with some generic theme that does absolutely nothing to iterate on what's already existed. I think this one's a near miss for me. It might be good to play with families of kids who are just loving hitting the tower, and I think that's what it's aimed at. And I would certainly try something like this again. So yeah, I'm very excited that designers are trying stuff like this and that publishers are producing it. Just wasn't quite there for me this time. That's Trollfjord. Woodlands is a real-time puzzle tile laying game where you are playing with these, you've got these plastic sheets that you will ultimately be putting over the tiles that you lay down to see if you've created the perfect pathway. It actually comes with 4 different stories, and then there are chapters with each. And so the first one is like the beginner one, that's Red Riding Hood. Then you've got Robin Hood, there's a Dracula one, and a King Arthur one. And what you're doing is you can see here, it gives you some goals on the sheet of what you need to do. So this is a very basic one where you just need to get Red Riding Hood to the end point. And you also want to get her to pick up as many strawberries as possible. So you've got this acetate that you can see, but you can't overlay it on your thing. And then against the timer, you will be taking these tiles. Everyone's got identical set of tiles and trying to arrange them in such a way that you will, that Red Riding Hood will be able to walk along this path perfectly and get to all the things that she needs to. And so this one's very simple, and let's see, I say that, maybe I won't be able to achieve it whilst I'm trying to film. That isn't right, but anyway, so Red Riding Hood, oh no, she can't even get through. So there's a spatial thing of trying to get the right tiles in the right place, but you can't test your results until the thing is over. You can rotate them, and you've got to find which ones are the right tiles for you to use and where you should put them. And there's a real challenge to it. Now, this is the beginner level. It gets way, way, way harder. This is even still within the beginner's chapter. It introduces lots more ideas, such as these wolves that are trying to eat the bunny rabbits. And if you allow the wolves to be have a path to the bunny rabbits, then you're going to lose minus points. Or if the bunny rabbits are in the forest and you allow the wolves a path through the forest, you're going to lose minus points. So often the levels use this interesting, you've got the difference between the forest and the path. And sometimes it's good to have things in the forest because it means that they're just blocked off from you. But sometimes if the forest then connects to the thing that it's not supposed to, then that's bad as well. There are other scenarios where there are fires, and if the fire's in the forest, then that's obviously bad because it's going to burn the forest down. And it gets really intricate. In the Robin Hood one, there's line of sight rules for these huntsmen that are trying to get you. So you need to try and block them off by having forest bits in front of where they're pointing their bows. As the game goes on, it really gets challenging. And because you're playing against the timer, you don't have enough time to really think it through properly. So you will have to cut corners or make mistakes. And it's fun. It's challenging, and you think that you'll have it and then you'll lay it over and you don't. If you've ever played the game Looney Quest, it feels very similar to that. And in that game, you are drawing with a whiteboard pen onto a plastic sheet and then overlaying the plastic sheet onto the map, which looks a lot like a video game. So this is almost like a reverse of that. And this one, I think, has a bit more puzzle to it because you have to use these and you won't have the ones that you want when you need them. Whereas Looney Quest is a bit more of a dexterity challenge and a sort of a spatial awareness challenge, because you're literally just having to draw a line and work out exactly where you should put it. I slightly prefer Looney Quest because it's a bit sillier and a bit just that reveal and then thinking you've got it and not having it, and that dexterity challenge I find just a bit more immediate fun than this. But if you like the sound of this real-time puzzle laying thing, it's great. It's a really good game. It's got nice like theme for kids, and there's loads and loads of levels in here with loads of replayability. So I wouldn't say you needed. I wouldn't necessarily, one person would probably like this over Looney Quest. I slightly prefer Looney Quest. You could totally own both because they are different enough, but there is that similarity. I thought I'd mention it. So that is Woodlands. Poetry Slam is an interesting word game that also requires you to come up with rhyming couplets. So the way it works is that you will have to come up with a word and you're assigned a little challenge for this round. So there's a prompt. This one says first letter is, and then you've got a letter. So you need to come up with a word where the first letter is T, or you might have the last letter is T, things like that. And so you're coming up with a word and you're doing it as fast as you can because there are these speed tiles that you can take. So if you finish your word, then you will take a speed tile. You can take this 5-1, that will be 5 points. You finish the fastest, but there's a reason why you might not want to take that, and I'll get to that. You might want to take a lesser pointed one. So you're going to get points for the length of your word as well, so you want to come up with one that's long as possible. So That's going to make you struggle a little bit with being fast in terms of coming up with this word. And then the interesting twist of this game is that you've got to get the other players to guess that word. So you don't reveal it immediately and you're playing behind the shield. You've got to get them to guess that word by saying a rhyming couplet, but not using that word. So for example, I, in a previous game, wrote the word jailbird. So then I would say a rhyming couplet. And maybe I would say, the first half of this is another word for prison. The second half of this is another word for women. Which sort of rhymes. I got away with it at the time. And then everyone then guesses what the word is. And somebody guessed jailbird, and I get points for that. I actually don't want them to guess until the end of the poem. So that's interesting because I get one less point if they guess early on. So if the word is too obvious, or maybe my poem is too obvious, that's really interesting. I love creating poems in games. There's a game called Serrano that I really love, and there's Rhyme the Rap game, which never actually came onto Kickstarter, but it was a game of writing raps, and that kind of thing just really, I just really love that kind of thing, and I really enjoyed that aspect of this game. And I like word games as well, trying to come up with the longest word and having to meet certain criteria. This speed tile that you take will then remove a letter that you can then not use in future words. So if I had taken this one here, it would have removed a K. So then I've got a board in front of me where I place a token onto the K to show that I can no longer use K. It's actually quite tricky then in the future to remember that, because you're just desperately trying to come up with a word quickly, and then you're like, oh yeah, I used a word with a K. In which case you get punished, and you take these slam tokens, and they are minus points at the end of the game. You also have these other tokens, which are called snaps, which are kind of a reference to actual poetry slams where people snap at each other. And that is where you're kind of giving someone a prize. So you would give them a prize for a good word, or if you like their poem. This, I like this game. I had fun with this game. But it's not quite there for me, and I think it's just because there's a little bit too much going on. It works in tandem with each other. I like word games, and yes, there's something fun about trying to come up with this word, but I almost just want to do the poetry stuff, except the poetry stuff doesn't work without having come up with a word, because your friends know that you wrote a word with the last letter T. So they're not just guessing any words, because then that will be quite hard. They're guessing specifically words that end with the letter T and based off of this poem. So they've got an idea about the type of word that you're going for, and that works. The speed thing of trying to finish quickly and getting points, that works in word games. And then this idea about not being able to use letters definitely makes the game challenging. And of course, it makes sense to have tokens to punish you. I don't think the snaps are really necessary, but they're not the end of the world. There's just quite a lot going on. It isn't something you can just kind of jump into like your average party game. There's a bit to teach, and actually goes quite long as well. Because once you've sort of taken some time coming up with the words, then everyone takes a while to come up with their rhyming couplet. You don't have to take it in turns, but there will be one or two people that just really struggle with that aspect. And so I'm not sure how many people I could viably play this game with. I like it. I respect it. I would recommend it to you if you like the sound of it. It isn't going to stay in my collection, but I don't think that means it's a bad game. I feel like I want it to be streamlined, but then as soon as I try to take parts off of it in my head, it somehow falls apart as an idea, and I'm not sure where you would streamline it. So it's a weird conclusion, but that's where I'm at with it. That's Poetry Slam. Quantum is a roll and write game from NSV in the same line as Quicks and Quinto, and that was why I was excited about it, because Quinto is one of my favourite roll and write games there is, and this is the third one in the trilogies, actually from different designers to Quinto and from Quicks. They're all different designers, but it has a similar feel to it in that you've got a small bit of paper, you are rolling dice, writing numbers down, and they want to go in sequential order. You've got 4 different colours, and the lines want to ascend in order until you hit this line after 4 numbers, and then it needs to come down in descending order. So on your turn, you will roll all of these dice, and you will work out what you can write in. So this white dice here is always added to the number of the other colors. So if I was to write down purple, I would have 10 purple, I would have 7 blue, and I would have 10 red, and there's yellow actually isn't shown, so I can use the white dice and I would basically just have 4 yellow. So generally speaking, you want high numbers because the way you score points is by scoring the second highest number in a column. So here I've got 8, 7, 8, 7. I scored 8 points. So it's actually really good to get the same numbers in a column if it's either the lowest number or, well, mostly if it's the lowest number, because then if you've got like 3 7s and then one of your rows has a 15 in it, you're going to score 15 points. So that's great. So higher numbers, the better, because you're getting points for them, but you're really going to struggle. If you go really high early on in the leftmost column, you're going to struggle to be able to get higher numbers because you can only put in what the dice give you. And whilst it's possible to get all of the die faces on purple, and then this dice on 6, and so you got some massive number, it doesn't happen very often. So you are trying to play that balance of going as high as possible to get more points than the other players, but making sure that you can actually write something in, because if you can't write something in, you're going to take a penalty, and those are minus points. But really, the bigger penalty of not writing something in is just that you won't get columns finished. If you don't get columns finished, you won't get any points for them, and then you just won't come close. So I've seen games where people go really high, big with their numbers early on, and then they're just not taking any numbers, because you only have to take a number on your turn when you're rolling the dice. When other people are rolling the dice, you can just pass, but that does mean that the game can go a bit slow, because if nobody's writing any numbers down on other people's turns, then these sheets aren't getting filled up, and the game ends when somebody completes their sheet, or if somebody takes all the punishments. What also happens in the game is that you draft your selection. So let's say I took yellow here. The other players would not have access to what I picked as the first player. So they get the option of what's left. You can re-roll any amount of the dice. So let's say you want really high numbers, reds. Well, you've got 2 reds there. So you might re-roll this because it only came up with a 2, and then roll the rest of these really hoping for reds. Or you could re-roll everything. I like that aspect of getting to decide what to re-roll. I find that there's a fair bit of maths to it, because you're not just having to add up, like in Quinto, you have to add up 3 dice maximum. In this, you've got to sort of add up 3 here, then you've got to add up 3 here, then another 3. And that's just a bit time consuming. I'm not personally that great at mental arithmetic, and you're having to do that every turn. So I don't love that. I also think that drafting the dice in any roll and write game can slow things down a bit, because you're not just all going off the same result. But at least in this game, it's not like you're all picking separate things. There's basically just one person picks, and then everyone else they can share the results of what's left. I like this one. I think that it's a worthy successor to Quinto, but I can't really see why I wouldn't always just play Quinto instead. I think that there are decisions to be made, and you don't want to get all your columns in the same place at the same time necessarily, because then you're aiming for big numbers in all of the colors. The way it descends is interesting, and the way that you score the second highest thing. There's clever ideas, but I'm not sure it makes for a game that I love, and I love Quinto. So if you're really into roll and write games, it might be worth one worth trying out, but I'm probably just going to stick to playing Quinto and maybe other roll and write games that are just completely different to this type. That is Quantum. Clickbait is a party game designed by Reiner Knizia, if you can believe it. It's very simple. You roll these dice, they have letters on, and then you have to come up with a clickbait title or slogan or just like a clickbait headline for the internet for a specific product. So they're always weird and wonderful things, like you've got a beer-fueled jetpack, or sandwich shoes, or board game-themed funerals. So then you've got a bit of paper and you're writing down using these letters. You don't have to use all of them. So if I was gonna do board game-themed funerals, I might go with, wow, what's a board game beginning with any letters? This is just a really quick one. I've got Gary's Sagrada in Afterlife Seances, which kind of fits. And so everyone's writing one down, you give them to the judge, and the judge reads them all out and picks their favorite, generally the funniest. And it's simple, it's that kind of it's got a little bit of creativity for a party game. I tend to like stuff like that. And these cards have got nice, they give you good inspiration for coming up with funny stuff. Generally, when I've played it, it tends to get quite dark and quite adult, at least in my friendship group. I don't love it, and I think it's just because some people really struggle to come up with funny stuff that fits these letters, or other people would rather not be hamstrung by what's on these dice, which I think is kind of fair, but also I think you do need some guidance maybe, because if you just had a blank whiteboard, you'd be there forever. I also think that there's just not enough cards here. Like, I think you play this 3 or 4 times and you would have seen all the products. Now, of course, you can play them again because the dice gives you that replayability. You will be coming up with different slogans, but I just think there should be at least double this in a game of this type, so that you're surprised, or at least make them double-sided or something. So I definitely think it's fun for a few plays, and if you want a simple creative party game with a cool like modern theme, it can be as family-friendly as you want it to be. I think there's a fun game in here, but I'm just not like going, this is amazing. That is Clickbait. Those are the board games that I've been playing lately. I'll put links to where you can buy them in the description below. I'm Jon Purkis. Thanks for watching.